Welcome everyone, and especially a big thank you to Bronwyn Mitchell-Strong for inviting us to speak today. My name, as mentioned earlier, is Jim Mosely, along with my colleague Dave Frank, are from the USGS Minerals Resource Program, and we will be your speakers tonight. We ask to please hold any questions until the end of the presentation as we give an overview of the USGS Minerals Resources Program, known as MRP, and review some examples for critical minerals applications. A little warning, my part of the presentation is a little more technical, and the fun stuff, since we have I saw a couple young audience participants, they'll be more excited for the second part of the presentation. Okay, there we go. Let's begin with a little background of who MRP is and how it was formed. The U.S. Geological Survey was established by the Organic Act of 1879 as part of the Department of Interior to provide for the classification of public lands and examination of geological structures, mineral resources, and products of the national domain. Minerals also includes energy resources, which is a separate program and not covered in today's presentation. Our mission includes mineral occurrences and distribution of resources, supply, demand, extraction, use, and disposal that includes the effects of resources and use and mineral waste as a resource. Our organizational structure for the MRP works under the Energy Minerals Mission Area for U.S. Geological Survey as one of several bureaus, agencies under the Department of Interior. MRP's office is housed in Reston, Virginia at the USGS headquarters building known as the National Center in Reston, Virginia. MRP includes 5 science centers across the US with approximately 305 funded scientists and support staff to complete its mission for specific mineral projects. Our science centers include the National Mineral Information Center in Reston, Virginia. Our second one is Geology, Energy, and Mineral Science Center, also located in Reston, Virginia. Our third science center is called Geology, Geophysics, and Geochemistry Science Center, located in Denver, Colorado. Our fourth is Geology, Minerals, Energies, and Geophysics Science Center, located at Moffett Field, California, with several small offices in Spokane, Washington, where Dave is, Reno, Nevada, Tucson, Arizona, and Portland, Oregon. And our last science center is in Alaska, Anchorage, called the Alaska Science Center. MRP has 3 initiatives to carry out its mission. First initiative is mineral information. Our second initiative is research and assessment. And our third initiative is Earth Mapping Resources Initiative, known as Earth MRI. Although there is overlap with each initiative, I will highlight their major differences as a brief overview and explain each in a little more details in the coming slides. Our first MRP initiative, mineral information, is to analyze global supply, demand, and trade of mineral commodities, forecast supply chain disruptions, develop and update the nation's critical minerals list, and under the Presidential Executive Order 14017 for American supply chains, lead a whole of government strategy to ensure sustainable and secure mineral supplies. The second MRP initiative, research and assessments, is to understand mineral systems and deposits, understand impacts of mineral development, and quantify mineral resources across the resources life cycle. Our final initiative, Earth MRI, is to research and develop domestic data collection, mapping, and synthesis to characterize potential critical mineral resources still in the ground, and also potential above ground resources in mine waste and other waste streams. The Mineral Information Initiative is managed by identifying critical mineral commodities for supply, demand, and trade. These tasks are completed by analyze supply chain dependencies for emerging technology sectors, including defense, advanced manufacturing, consumer technology, renewable energy generation and storage. Also, monitor net import reliance by commodity, trade partner, technology and manufacturing sector. We also advise the State Department of Commerce, the U.S. International Development Finance Corporation, and the U.S. Trade Representative on strategic investment and trade partnerships for mineral commodities, processing, and related manufacturing. The image example represents monitored key elements for energy generation and respect for minerals used in solar panels and offshore wind turbines. As part of the Mineral Information Initiative, this slide represents an example how the MRP National Mineral Information Center, known as NIMIC, publishes documentation of the U.S. import reliance for mineral commodities for internal and external stakeholders, such as the federal government, public, and private sectors. The image example details mineral commodities and their major import reliance percentages that are used for determining current and future supply dependencies and potential shortfalls that may need new strategies and policies to address. The Mineral Information Initiative also includes the Energy Act, which requires USGS MRP to update the critical minerals list every 3 years. This past February, MRP published the new 2022 final critical minerals list after working with other federal agency offices and updated data. The draft list was published in the Federal Registry for a public comment period and for input before finalizing a final published list to all stakeholders in the Federal Registry. The current copy on the slide is what we've just published this past February of 2022. As part of the Mineral Information Research and Assessment Initiatives, MRP must forecast supply chain disruptions. Example disruptions, those caused by trade wars or pandemics, which we just got through one, and you're seeing a war with the Ukraine. Analyze supply chain scenarios, including technology development and policy changes. Example technology developments are electric vehicles and offshore wind turbines. Example policy scenarios is the image on the right, is a policy which is between 2016 and 2040, the Clean Power Plan, which requires 15 to 43% more of several byproduct minerals, and a policy would need to be generated to compensate for that. The image example uses the mineral tellurium requirements to meet anticipated solar demand under current policy scenarios, which is reviewed for each of the mineral commodities. Additionally, the Research and Assessment Initiative for MRP includes critical mineral resource assessments by providing a method for comparing different types of resources across regions, combine geologic maps, geochemical analysis, geophysics, and additional geoscience analysis, provide land managers information on resource potential impact development on water supply, water quality, land disturbance, and ecosystem changes. The image example uses the critical mineral tungstens published current above resource assessments I just reviewed for the Great Basin region of Western Nevada and Central California. Resource recovery and remediation of mine waste impacts both mineral information, research, and assessment initiatives for critical minerals potential recovery. At some mine sites, both remediation and critical mineral recovery are possible. In many cases, critical minerals have been left behind in mine waste during past mining. Understanding these potential critical mineral reservoirs for future use is being researched, and the data collected, excuse me, presented to all stakeholders for public access through our project titled U.S. Mineral Deposit Database, which the database is accessible to all government, private, and public stakeholders on our website called Mineral Resources Online Spatial Data, known better as Mr. Data. The image examples show shared mineral deposits by products and the U.S. Mineral Deposit Database project's data mapped throughout the U.S. and completed mine waste sites data analysis. The image on the right are all the little mining point data, previous mines that have gone on in the U.S., and the ones in progress are still being investigated to complete. Since 2019, the Earth Mapping Resource that I mentioned earlier initiative, better known as Earth MRI, has been expanding our knowledge of geologic framework of the United States. This USGS-led partnership with state geology surveys, other federal agencies, and the private sector generates state-of-the-art geologic maps, geophysical surveys, and elevation LiDAR data in areas for critical minerals potential. If you note on each of the slides, which a copy will be provided, there's always a link for reference, and you can visit the information on our public websites if you would like to review more information. Now, to close out my part of the presentation, as most folks have seen or heard in the news, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law is supporting many federal and non-federal stakeholders. The Bipartisan Infrastructure Law is supporting MRP Earth MRI through funding over the next 5 years. The 5-year funding is expected to be $64 million and an expected $10.6 million year appropriations. So the law is providing $64 million over 5 years with an additional $10.6 million appropriations. This law benefits by transformational opportunity to provide the nation with state-of-the-art data and mapping. Existing activities will expand in scope, such as the detailed geologic mapping and regional geochemical surveys over large areas, with the addition of airborne magnetic and radiometric geophysical surveys coverage to increase from our current less than 1%, approximately 1% per year, in both the continental US and Alaska to more than 5% per year. For those that know, that's a big increase in data that we will be analyzing and collecting. We also increased the number of elevation LiDAR surveys, advanced data preservation and delivery. We are planning to add some new activities such as data collection for mine waste and resource and remediation, which is a big push, and acquire more diverse geophysical data such as more airborne electromagnetic surveys and the addition of hyperspectral surveys with airborne and unmanned aerial vehicles such as drones. Now I talk a little fast and the slides might have been too fast, but I want to thank everyone for listening to me today. And before my colleague starts the more exciting part of the presentation, if there are any questions concerning MRP and its initiatives, I think Bronwyn is going to monitor the chat. So I'm happy to answer any questions on the information I just presented.
Thanks, Jim. Why don't you stop sharing? We'll come back together and I'll see if there are any questions about that. I have one, especially with the new data collection that's going on. Is that accessible by the public?
Yes, we have an Earth MRI site, and I mentioned the Mr. Data site. Right now, we're in negotiations developing contracts with other state geological surveys in the private sector. And we're also contracting with the NASA to get some more satellite data from them. And there'll be a future repository built for all this new data collected. So that, until we get that site up and running, we'll be adding the information to the Earth MRI site and Mr. Data for now.
All right, I'm gonna have to go check out Mr. Data. I love that name. Any questions for Jim about the Minerals Resources Program? A very important part of our government. Let's see. You can raise your hand or put it in the chat box. All right, well, they're thinking of questions, Jim. They might have it at the end of Dave's presentation, but I'll go ahead and turn it over to Dave. Dave, you're on.
Okay, just 1 second. I'm gonna run the slides for him.
Okay.
There we go. With no more questions, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Dave Frank, a now retired geologist that has graciously come back to help out with outreach and other projects. Dave?
Well, hello from Spokane, Washington, everybody. I'd like to thank Jim and Bronwyn for allowing us to give our little spiel here. And we're throwing a lot of information at you, but as Jim said, all of this that you're looking at, you're going to be able to find a link to, a reference to if you want to do fact checking on us, or just if you have interest in other things. So I'm going to share a few facts with you regarding the mineral resources and mineral commodities. So did you know that the average automobile contains more than a ton of iron and steel, and 240 pounds of aluminum, and 50 pounds of carbon, 42 pounds of copper, 41 pounds of silicon, and 22 pounds of zinc, and more than 30 other mineral commodities, including titanium, platinum, and gold? Do you know the cost of a pound of copper? Well, right now it's about $4.35 a pound. That's for non-recycled. Or do you know the cost of an ounce of platinum? Around $1,100 an ounce right now. So we're constantly reminded of the importance of gasoline, and lately the cost of gasoline to keep our car running. Do you ever think about the importance and the cost of the materials that make up your car? Do we take those minerals for granted? When the power goes out, few of us give a second thought about the copper and aluminum needed to carry the electricity from the power plant to our homes or offices. When the battery dies, you don't automatically think about the lead, nickel, cadmium, or lithium used to make the batteries that store the power for our cell phones or hybrid cars, because you don't buy minerals, you buy products that have been manufactured using mineral materials. But without these non-fuel mineral commodities, many things that we take for granted wouldn't work. So next slide, Jim. So this is what brought Bronwyn to us, the mobile phone. So our mobile phones and other high technology communication devices couldn't exist without mineral commodities. More than 1/2 of all the components in a mobile device, including its electronics, display, battery, speakers, and more, are made from mined and semi-processed materials, mineral commodities. Some mineral commodities can be recovered as byproducts during the production and processing of other commodities. As an example, bauxite is mined for its aluminum content, but gallium is recovered during the aluminum production process. And don't let anybody try to sell you a rhenium mine. There is no such thing as a rhenium mine. It is only recovered from flue dusts during the processing of molybdenum. Next slide, Jim. So where does some of this material come from? We talk from source to product. Well, the Great Basin and surrounding areas contain lithium in rhyolites and ignimbrites, brines, geothermal waters, and surface and deep clays in these closed basins. The ignimbrites are part of a larger ignimbrite province that extends from Idaho through the Sierra Madre Occidental of Western Mexico. Lithium brine in the Clayton Valley, Nevada, has been mined for lithium since 1966, and the lithium clay deposit at McDermott Caldera on the Nevada-Oregon border is the largest single lithium resource in the United States at approximately 2 million metric tons. These lithium-bearing resources are components of our larger working model for the genesis and evolution of lithium, brine, and clay resources in the entire Western US. Next slide.
Oh, Frank. Did Frank freeze on us, Jim?
I think he did. So let me just give him a little minute here. The virtual world of technical difficulties. I know he's having a rainstorm, I think, coming too, so he might be affected by that. If he doesn't come on in a few seconds, I'll take over. Bronwyn, you're muted. I can't hear you.
He's still on, and he's still on. Dave, can you hear us? Well, this is odd. Oh, now he popped off, so he'll be popping back on. Just 1 second.
Sorry about that, folks.
Hopefully. So let me ask you this, Jim. Are they constantly looking for alternatives to use for material that may be found only in a country that may not be friendly with us? Not just an alternative location to where that mineral may be found, but an alternative to that mineral in general.
Right, that's a continuation of the supply chain executive order that I mentioned earlier. They're looking at that's why they put the critical minerals list together, to find out where all the supplies are, where the stockpiles are, who's the major producer, what percentages, and that's how policies development is strategized off those reports. Say if it's only developed in China, or the major portion of it was developed in China, then we need to compensate to make sure there's no shortages for the US. And we'd either, I think Biden's got currently trying to increase mining in certain areas because of the conflicts that's going on now with the Ukraine and Russia, because we get a lot of supplies from Russia in the supply chains. So, and with manufacturing, you know, these, we've got to keep manufacturing going. So that's how that's addressed. I'll go ahead and pick up, and Dave, if he comes back on, he can take back over.
Okay, Jim, thank you.
No worries. Sorry about that, folks. The slide that we have up right now are a satellite called Landsat 9. Landsat 9 data have been crucial to responding to natural hazards like wildfires and volcanoes, tracking agricultural development, documenting urban expansion, and mapping mineral resources. Fittingly, Landsat 9 benefits from those mineral resources and the role they play. Instruments on Landsat 9 include the thermal infrared sensor 2, which measures land surface temperature and is constructed with cobalt, nickel, excuse me, palladium, and titanium. Principal mineral commodities that make up the guidance and communication systems include aluminum, chromium, cobalt, copper, magnesium, nickel, tin, titanium, and vanadium. The solar panels on, we call it L9 for short, contain nickel, silicon, and tin. As you can see from that satellite, from the image, the satellite, it's got a lot of minerals in it. So as you can imagine, without these commodities, these type of equipments would not be realized. And if you'd like to learn more about the Landsat 9, there's always, like I mentioned earlier, links on the slides that you can access to go. We have full pages built out that describes in more detail as well. Now we're going to look at metals and minerals as examples are vital components of medical devices that allow millions of people to enjoy healthy lifestyles. Devices implanted in the human body can replace, support, or enhance an existing body part. Other devices can diagnose, monitor, or treat clinical conditions, both saving lives and improving people's quality of life. There are a wide variety of medical devices with different minerals, metals in each one. Here are just a few examples. Dental implants, mouthful of minerals. Cobalt is used for denture frameworks. Gold is used in dental prostheses, inlays, crowns, and bridges. Iron, major constituent of stainless steel, is used in crowns and dental tools and instruments. Silver is used to make dental fillings. Zirconium is a major constituent to ceramics used in dental applications.
Hey, Jim, I'm back.
Oh, let me finish this slide and then I'll let you take over. Okay?
No worries, sorry.
No worries. Thanks for coming back. Sensory and neurological implants you utilize iridium to coat gold, copper, and titanium wires. Lithium is used in the batteries that power these devices. Plutonium is currently one of the best electrode materials and is used in stents, coils, and catheters. Sensory and neurological implants are implantable devices that communicate with the nervous system to either record electrical nerve activity or to electrically stimulate nerve cells that would improve senses that are not functioning properly. Examples include cochlear implants are designed to transmit sound of speech into the brain, allowing a person to hear. Retinal prostheses are fitted with sensors that trigger an electric pulse. This pulse then stimulates the nerves in the retina, which pass signals down to the optic nerve to the brain to create an image. Electrical stimulators, or functional neuromuscular stimulation, are devices that deliver electrical impulses to nerves in the brain, treating disorders as deafness, incontinence, chronic pain, depression, and Parkinson's disease, among others. Permanent orthopedic implants are expected to stay in the body for a long time. We hope. They can be implanted into joints like your hips, knees, and ankles, your shoulders, elbows, and wrists. Temporary orthopedic implants, meanwhile, are small devices needed to fix fractured bones, aren't expected to serve for a short period of time until the bone heals. These include plates, screws, pins, wires, and nails, as some of us older folks are experiencing some of these requirements now. With that, I will turn it back over to Dave. Dave?
I apologize, everyone. I just love it when your internet connection drops in the middle of a presentation, but not the first time, I'm sure. So mineral resources, example of critical minerals and renewable energy from source to product. To make the America's economy and defense more secure, the administration's released a federal strategy to ensure secure and reliable supplies of critical minerals. Among other roles, these mineral commodities are vital to renewable energy infrastructure like solar panels and wind turbines and batteries. So for solar panels, for example, several of the 35 mineral commodities listed as critical by the Department of the Interior play an important role in solar panels, where the sun's energy is transformed into electricity. In other words, the photovoltaic cell. Arsenic, for example, high purity arsenic is used to produce gallium arsenide semiconductors for solar cells. In 2018, the United States was 100% reliant on foreign sources for arsenic, as well as 100% reliant for gallium. Germanium. Germanium-based solar cells are commonly used in satellites. The United States in 2018 was more than 50% reliant on foreign sources for germanium. Indium. Indium is used in copper, indium, gallium, diselenide, thin film solar cells. And in 2018, the United States was 100% reliant on foreign sources for indium. Tellurium, used in cadmium, tellurium, thin film solar cells. In 2018, once again, the United States relied on foreign sources for more than 75% of its tellurium. Let's look at wind turbines. Wind turbines increasingly dot our landscape, rising hundreds of feet in the air to capture electricity from the movement of the wind. Just like solar cells, wind turbines also rely on a few mineral commodities that have been designated as critical: aluminum and rare earth elements. So aluminum plays an important role in most parts of a wind turbine, particularly in the nacelle, where the transfer of wind power to electricity occurs. The United States was 50% reliant on foreign sources for aluminum in 2018. Rare earth elements, responsible for some of the most powerful and efficient magnets on the planet. Rare earth elements enable wind turbines to have smaller, lighter generators. Although the United States mined and exported rare earth minerals in 2018, it relied on imports to meet its domestic demands for rare earth compounds, metals, and manufactured products. Batteries. Batteries play an ever more important supporting role for renewable energy sources like wind and solar, allowing excess power to be stored for usage when direct solar or wind power are unavailable. Just like energy sources they complement, modern batteries rely on critical mineral commodities, particularly cobalt, graphite, lithium, and manganese. Cobalt. On a global basis, the leading use of cobalt is in rechargeable battery electrodes. In 2018, the United States relied on foreign sources for 61% of the cobalt it consumed. Graphite. It serves as an electrode in many lithium batteries. In 2018, the United States was 100% reliant on foreign sources for graphite. Lithium. Lithium's got a long history in batteries and is a common material used in batteries today. In 2018, the United States was more than 50% reliant on foreign sources for lithium. Manganese also serves as an electrode in many lithium batteries, and the United States, once again in 2018, was 100% reliant on foreign sources for manganese. Next slide, please. Policymakers and the US manufacturing sector now have a powerful tool to help them identify which mineral commodities they rely on that are most at risk to supply disruptions, thanks to new methodology by the USGS and its partners. The methodology evaluated the global supply of and US demand for 52 mineral commodities for the years 2007 through 2016. It identified 23 mineral commodities, including some rare earth elements, cobalt, niobium, and tungsten, as posing the greatest supply risk for the US manufacturing sector. These commodities are vital for mobile devices, renewable energy, aerospace, and defense applications, among others. The United States is highly reliant on imports of many mineral commodities whose production is concentrated in a few countries. This poses a significant risk to the manufacturing sector that uses those mineral commodities. A new USGS report evaluating the mineral commodity supply risk of the US manufacturing sector identifies 23 mineral commodities that pose the greatest risk, including cobalt, tantalum, platinum group metals, and rare earth elements. These and other mineral commodities are used in strategic applications, including single crystal turbine blades deployed near the combustion zone on jet engines. Production of many mineral commodities is highly concentrated in a few countries. Single crystal turbine blades are composed of superalloys containing a number of mineral commodities, including cobalt, chromium, rhenium, and tantalum, which provide the physical and chemical properties that allow for improved design tolerances that increase thrust and enable higher operating temperatures to improve efficiency. They are also coated with yttrium stabilized zirconia and platinum aluminide to improve thermal stability and extend the life of the blades. These jet engine turbine blades are an engineering marvel and are composed of rhenium and tantalum and cobalt and platinum and chromium and yttrium. Next slide. So where does the mineral commodity come from? Well, globally, 50% of the rhenium production comes from Chile. 39% of tantalum comes from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. 70% of cobalt production comes from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. 72% of platinum production comes from South Africa. 41% of chromium production comes from South Africa. And over 95% of yttrium production comes from China. Mineral commodity net import reliance. So the United States is highly import reliant, as you can see, for a large and growing number of mineral commodities. 83% reliant for rhenium, 100% reliant for tantalum, 64% reliant for cobalt, 74% reliant for platinum, 73% reliant for chromium, and 100% reliant for yttrium. So how are we addressing this supply risk? This enhanced methodology for assessing the supply risk has been developed, and we've identified it is greatest when, 1, US manufacturers rely on foreign sources, 2, foreign supplies are likely to be disrupted, and 3, the ability of US manufacturers to withstand a disruption is limited. Next slide, please. So minerals are everywhere, and I always like to think of the 4th of July as another good way to see minerals in action. So mineral elements, they provide the color in our fireworks. Barium produces the bright greens, and strontium yields the deep reds, and copper produces blues, and sodium yields yellow. Other colors can be made by mixing elements. Strontium and sodium produce brilliant orange. Titanium, zirconium, magnesium alloys make the silvery white. Copper and strontium makes the lavender, and gold sparks are produced by iron filings and small pieces of charcoal. Bright flashes and loud bangs come from aluminum powder. Strontium, for example, in addition to its use for making fireworks, is used in signaling, oil and gas production, and ceramic magnets. Strontium is a critical mineral commodity. Sodium, in addition to making our fireworks yellow, is used to make polyvinyl chloride, PVC, plastic, made from chlorine and paper pulping chemicals manufactured from caustic soda. Barium chloride, in addition to making fireworks green, barium is also used in medicine and oil and gas production. Barium is a critical mineral commodity. Copper, in addition to making fireworks blue and purple, copper is one of the oldest metals used by humans, and today is mostly used in electronics and power generation. Titanium, along with zirconium and magnesium to make fireworks gray and white, titanium is overwhelmingly used as a white pigment and in metal alloys. Critical minerals commodity, it is a critical mineral commodity as well. And zirconium, along with titanium and magnesium, to make gray and white, zirconium is used in the high temperature ceramics industry. It is also a critical mineral commodity. And finally, magnesium, along with titanium and zirconium. Magnesium is used in furnace linings for manufacturing steel and ceramics, and it is a critical mineral commodity. Next slide, please. So we've thrown a whole lot of numbers and a whole lot of information at you in a very short time. We've talked about mineral commodities. We've talked about critical minerals and uses of minerals and where they come from and how we're involved in identifying potential resources and how we track the production of those and the supply chain of critical minerals. So the Mineral Resources Program has a broad scope, and all of this work that we do is sort of, how do we do our advertising for it? Well, Jim is the guy that's in charge of that. So the Mineral Resources Program Outreach Project, what we call Mr. POP, assists in the delivery of our science. We utilize multiple platforms for a wide variety of end users. We present an exhibit like I'm doing tonight or like we're doing today. We do it at national and international minerals related conferences and events. We describe our work to a broad audience on USGS websites, which is where you can find all of our information is freely available, and or social media. In fact, the Mineral Resources Program is approaching 10,000 followers on its Twitter account. And that's quite an accomplishment for a boring government site like us. And all of our published science and our scientific results are available free, as I said, to everyone via either our publications warehouse, Science Base for data, and any USGS website where you can find information from project to people to program. It's all on the web. So I'd like to thank you, first of all, for your time tonight. And I'm going to toss it back to Jim if he's got any final thoughts and corrections. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dave.
As I said in the beginning, this was the more exciting part of the presentation. After all my technical and stats, you got to see the actual applications of minerals in real life scenarios. And I hope we were able to educate and share and interest folks in learning more about minerals, especially at the Natural History Society of Maryland. Rowan has a great program there, and we're always happy to support her and her efforts there at the museum. And we're going to open it up now for any further questions. Please feel free to put anything in the chat and Rowan will ask the question, or please raise your hand and Rowan will take your questions. And me and Dave will try to answer them the best we can. If we can't get an answer for you, we'll find one for you and respond back. Rowan?
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, thanks, Jim and Dave. Why don't we unshare, come back together?
Okay.
And we, let me put a, all right. So if you want to ask a question, you can raise your hand. I will call on you, or you can put it in the chat box. I know that I'm always amazed to learn what is in the stuff that we use every day and where it comes from. I mean, we're in the cell phone that we hold, it's the whole entire world right at our fingertips, not only literally, not only figuratively, but actually literally. We have pieces of all over the earth right there in our hands. So that's really, really cool. It also shows how we are all interdependent and reliant upon each other, and why we all need to get along a little bit better, because the people, we like to have cell phones and other things, and so do everybody else in the world. So we all have to share and share alike. Any questions? Joshua, thank you. Yes, the slideshow was amazing. Casey says thanks for all the information and links, and she really, they really liked the slide on the fireworks. So again, every time we look at fireworks, now we're going to think of Dave and, in the air. So that's pretty cool. Any questions?
I'll give you for the youngsters that are out there, I'll give you a quick little fun thing to do at home. Okay, with chocolate chip cookies. Do a chocolate chip cookie mine. Okay, so you'll get a chocolate chip cookie, and you have to buy that chocolate chip cookie for $7. It's play money. We'll use play money. And you'll give it a tool, a flat toothpick, and that costs 50 cents. A round toothpick, that costs $1. And a paper clip, that costs $2. So now you're into your mining and your tools for $10, right? Okay, I'm going to have you draw a circle around the outside of your cookie, and then using your tools, I want you to mine the chocolate chips out of the cookie. That means you have to move them off to the side using only your tools. Can't use your hands, you can only use your tools. And anything that crumbs that fall outside this when you're done mining have to go back inside that circle. That's the reclamation part. Okay, so when you're mining, it's $1 a minute. And when you're reclaiming, it's 50 cents a minute. All right, so however long it takes you to get some chocolate chips out. And the idea is to get, I'll give you $2.50 for each chip that you get out. So the idea is to get enough chips out that you can pay for your mine, reclamation, and your equipment. Because I'll guarantee when you start playing with your flat toothpick, you're going to break it. That's what happens in a mine. They break equipment all the time. So they upgrade and find something better, which costs a little bit more. But the idea, that's the idea of a mineral deposit. Okay, you got to find it, you got to identify it, you got to then extract it, and you got to put it back the way things were. And then you got to sell your commodity to somebody that needs it. And that's the process.
All while not damaging too much the environment and the ecosystem as well.
That's right. That's all part of it. Yep.
So we have a question from Sarah. Which of these commonly used mineral resources are most at risk of just running out? Which is the least recyclable?
I responded in the chat of the top 5, but you got to consider that minerals are everywhere. And a lot of the risk of shortage is access and actually mining production. Those are the real limiting factors of, because it costs a lot to build up a mine. You've got, it's a big undertaking. So not all current mines, of course, can mine the same mineral, or if it's a byproduct, it's always an extraction process of whatever they're mining. So, but I listed the top 5. that because
And-
there are more limited production and limited access only.
And rhenium, the reason I brought up rhenium earlier too is don't let anybody sell you a rhenium mine. So the only way that we can get rhenium is through the processing of molybdenum. And the main use for rhenium is on those turbine blades in the new high efficiency engines, domestic airplanes, but mostly in the defense side of the house. Very important to have that, but we don't have any way to recycle rhenium. There's no way to reuse the rhenium we've used before. So you have to find a new source for that. And if you're going to produce more planes, then you need more rhenium. And you can only get it from those sources. This is where we're talking about the criticality of it, or the supply of it. There is only so much of it. And it's not that we might run out of it. It's just that we can only get so much of it at a time.
Thank you. Martin has a question. What are some elements that we think we can mine significantly more of in the United States?
Well,
Mark?
rare earths
ahead,
are one
Dave.
of the rare earths are one of the things that we are looking at because they are important in a lot of different uses, and they are extremely hard to find concentrations of them that are mineable. And Mountain Pass area is in California is one of the areas that has a world-class, what they call a world-class deposit. And so the rare earths are very important. And I think that's probably something that you would like to see more production of domestically.
Thank you, Dave.
But remember, mineral deposits are where you find them. We can't say, let's put one here.
Susan has a question. It's very interesting. It said that one of the tasks of the MRP is predicting when physical, political, or social event will impact the access of a particular mineral. Is there a department within USGS that does just that, like a USGS CIA? Do you have mineral spies out there trying to figure out, and maybe if they can't tell us because it's so top secret, are there mineral spies out there?
No, one of our science centers called the National Information Science Center, better known as NIMIC. That's their whole mission, as to focus on where the resources are, where are they located globally, and what production percentages is the U.S. reliant on, because that ties very much into policy development for mineral commodities that are in short access for the U.S. that could cause manufacturing shortages. We use NIMIC's main mission is to work on those questions. And that's it. As you saw, we have 2018 data because it takes a long time to gather this data, compress it, analyze it, and come up with the facts that we need. So and then we have to go through a peer review process to make sure all the data is accurate, good quality, and before publication is released. So there's always a lag behind this question and answer period. And as you saw, we use a lot of publications from 2018 because we're still in the process of updating those numbers. So it's a continuous moving target, but that's our main office that does that. Now we do have some secret stuff that goes on in cartography that we're not a part of, but I know there's some things that go on there that we don't know much about because it's even secret from us. Right?
Oh, very, very cool. Don't tell us.
I hope I answered your question correctly. So if I didn't, please ask in a different way and I'll try to respond.
Casey asks, is the cost of mining the reason why we depend on other countries for our minerals?
Some, yes, it can be. It also can be just physically, that's where the mineable commodity is. Copper has been mined for a long time, longer than any other metal or mineral. And well, perhaps we could maybe argue pigments and things like that, but copper we don't have any high grade copper deposits left. So we will find copper wherever we can get it. And generally don't have a lot of high grade anywhere in the world. So we're looking for any deposit that's accessible. And to follow along on the next question on Sarah's question on environmental detriments, rare earths are one of the minerals that we mine in the United States under a lot of regulation. And there's reason for that regulation, clean water, clean air, endangered species, so on. And other countries don't have these kinds of restrictions. And that's not necessarily a good thing. We would like to be responsible. I don't speak for the mining industry. I speak as an American citizen. I believe that we should mine responsibly. And I think that most companies in the American countries believe that as well and work that way. But in other countries, it's not necessarily that way. So it's you want to be very careful where you get your commodity from, because it can have backlash that comes along with it.
And Joshua asks, it's kind of a similar vein, is there a way to artificially make any of these critically necessary minerals like silver and lithium and gallium and indium so we don't run out?
Not economically. And it's one of the reasons, and it's kind of what it comes down to is the dollar. Where can you get it for the best price so that you don't, you have to pass the cost on of buying that commodity to whatever that end product is. And so that's, it's not very economic to, if we had a place on the moon and we could make some of these, minerals and mineral commodities easier, perhaps, and perhaps one day we'll get there. And same thing with mining asteroids. They have potential for lots of mineral resource that we don't have here. And USGS is looking into those kinds of things. Not today, not tomorrow, but the future is not very far out there. So that's why we're here to look at all those kinds of things.
And
what about recycling? Sorry, what about recycling of, we have all these minerals in our cell phones, and how is that process helping with the quantity and of material?
That's where we're looking at remediation in mine waste, not only at the previous mine sites, but also in recycled supply chains. That's also an avenue. But again, when you look at these, you've got to look at the cost of extraction. And we look at see what resources are there, and then try to address the problems for extraction technologies, how we can get this out cheaper. Because as Dave mentioned earlier, getting these rare earths and processes like leaching these minerals out of something is a very expensive chemical process and has a lot of environmental issues in doing this if a disaster was to happen around that process. So Dave, can you add to that?
No, I think, well, I had something on the tip of my tongue and now I forgot it. That's usually the case. For recycling side of the house, the number one recycled commodity that we recycle you wouldn't believe what it is. You'd probably say aluminum, and from the metal side of the house, that's true. But it's concrete and asphalt. Those are the number one recycled materials. Concrete, think about it, it's concrete. What are you gonna do? Break it up, put it back in, becomes concrete again. It's pretty easy to recycle. The problem with recycling in some cases is restrictions from legislation. For example, if you're developing an interstate highway, the federal regulations are more than likely going to require you to use virgin material, non-recycled material. They want what they know to be, brand new stuff. Whereas recycled material is already concrete. It's been tested. It should be able to be used again, but they don't allow that. So there are problems with recycling when you think that, oh, we could just recycle it and use it again. Yes and no. There are roadblocks in some cases to that. But more and more, and Bronwyn and I had this conversation earlier. You talk about cell phones. Just think of the number of cell phones that have been produced in the last 10 years alone. And the question that is, which would you rather have, a ton of cell phones or a ton of gold ore? And you better answer a ton of cell phones because there's more gold in it. Plus there's platinum, plus all the other minerals that we talked about in the cell phone in our presentation. All those other minerals are in there as well. And if you can recycle them, you're going to make a whole lot more money on that ton of cell phones than you are on the ton of gold ore.
All right. Any other questions for Dave or Jim? I know that we're all going to look at everything around us that we use a little bit differently and have a little more appreciation, thanks to the information that you have shared with us this evening. And I do hope that everybody can go and utilize the wonderful tools that are available on the USGS website and their data. And I maybe can get Jim to come to our museum and see our mineral collection in one day. He's not too far away in Alexandria, Virginia. And you're also invited, Dave. And if you're in town, come on over and say hi. And that goes for all of y'all as well. Thank you for joining us again for Must Learn Thursday. I hope to see you next week or in person at one of our programs that are coming back online. No, back in person at the museum. So take care, everybody. Stay well and stay curious. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for having us.